So in this session also, we'd like to have a reading from Buddhadev Guha. This is about Swami Brahmananda, who was named Rakhal. And Sri Ramakrishna said he was a part of Sri Krishna, part of Rakhal, the playmate of Sri Krishna in Vrindavan, that has come as Rakhal Chandra Ghosh. So, Buddhadev Guha.
So this is an excerpt talk of actually written by Swami Kripamayananda, who is a disciple of Swami Brahmananda, and as you know, the founder of the Vedanta Society of Southern California and many other centers in the Santa Barbara and other places, Chibuco. So the story of the boy dancing with Sri Krishna on a lotus. So Swami Prabhupada is saying, we all know how Sri Ramakrishna saw Rakhal dancing with Sri Krishna on a mystique lotus shortly before the boy's first visit to Dakshineshwar. Only a few intimate disciples knew of his vision, and Sri Ramakrishna had warned them never to reveal it to Maharaj, means Swami Brahmananda, explaining that if he realized his true nature as the eternal companion of Krishna, he would leave his mortal body. The secret had been very carefully guarded. Under the master's watchful eye, Rakhal was initiated into spiritual life with the vision of his chosen ideal, Sri Krishna. Look, said the master, there is your chosen ideal. Rakhal, in ecstatic vision, saw his chosen aspect of the Godhead standing before him, living and luminous, with a smile playing on his lips. When Rakhal regained his external consciousness and saw Sri Ramakrishna, he prostrated at his feet with loving devotion. He had known and experienced the divine power and grace of his Guru. As Swami Brahmananda, Rakhal was graced with high visions of God. Finally, at Omkarnath temple, Swami Brahmananda attained the coveted experience of Nirvikalpa Samadhi. Here, amidst charming natural surroundings, Swami Brahmananda lived continuously in Nirvikalpa Samadhi for 6 days and 6 nights, completely unconscious of the outside world. When at last he came back to normal consciousness, his face shone with a heavenly joy. He had experienced God in the impersonal, absolute aspect and had realized the identity of Atman with Brahman. In March 1922, Maharaj went to Calcutta to stay for a while at the home of Balaram. Balaram had already passed away, but his whole family were sincere devotees of Sri Ramakrishna, and his beautiful house was always at the disposal of the Swamis of the order. It is now regarded as a place of pilgrimage, sanctified as it was by the presence of so many holy men. One day, Swami Brahmananda Maharaj asked Ramlal Dada, Sri Ramakrishna's nephew, to sing for him the songs he used to sing to Sri Ramakrishna. it was arranged that many disciples and devotees should be present to hear the singing. Ram Lala began to sing songs about Krishna and the shepherds and the shepherdess of Vrindavan. At first, everyone was merry as Ramlal mimicked the gestures of the shepherdesses, making his audience laugh. Suddenly, Maharaj, who had also been enjoying the fun, became serious. Ramlal Dada was singing, "Come back, O Krishna, come back to Vrindavan. Come and reign in the hearts of your beloved shepherds and shepherdesses. Do not forget that you are shepherdesses. Do not forget that you are a shepherd yourself." Ramlal Dada was singing, "Come back, O Krishna, come back to Vrindavan." At that moment, Maharaj seemed transported to a realm beyond this earth. The joking and laughter stopped. The atmosphere became calm and serene. It may be at this moment Maharaj got a partial glimpse of his true nature and knew himself to God's eternal companion. The events that followed seemed to point to some such revelation. A few days later, at midnight, Nirvanananda, a disciple and personal attendant of Maharaj, saw him sitting on his bed in a very grave mood. The disciple stood silently before him, waiting for him to speak. Maharaj looked at him and said, "I woke suddenly and saw Sri Ramakrishna standing just there." He pointed to a spot in front of a couch, adding, "He didn't speak to me." He stood there silently for a while and then disappeared. "I don't understand." After a few minutes, Maharaj continued in a low, earnest voice, "I can't give my mind to the things of this world any longer. The mind wants to take complete refuge in him and him alone." The devotee asked Maharaj, "Maharaj, are you suffering very much?" "Please try to realize," Maharaj answered, "that in my condition, I have to bear all physical suffering patiently and without complaint." But as he said this, his face lighted up with a divine radiance. The pain seemed to have melted away. He lost external consciousness and became absorbed in meditation. About 9 o'clock that same evening, he placed his hand on Nirvanananda and said, "Do not grieve. You have served me well. You shall be merged in God and attain the knowledge of Brahman. I give you my blessing that you may attain this." Then he called all the disciples and devotees who were present to his side. For each he had a blessing and an affectionate word. "Ah, my children," he said tenderly, "never forget God, and you will realize the highest good. Do not grieve. I shall be with you always." Once more, he became absorbed in a transcendental vision. After some time had passed, he continued in a sweet, tender voice, I am floating on the leaf of faith and knowledge in the ocean of Brahman. Then suddenly he exclaimed, the feet of Sri Ramakrishna, I know them. Viveka, my brother Vivekananda, Premananda, Yogananda. Thus, with his divine sight, he recognized the brother disciples who had already passed away. He was living in the transcendental realm where he had lived through his life. But now he no longer concealed the fact. He began to describe his visions. He murmured softly, the blissful ocean of Brahman, Om, salutations to the supreme Brahman, Om, salutations to the supreme Atman. While speaking of his divine experiences, his throat became dry. The disciple offered him a drink, saying, Maharaj, please drink this water. It has lemon in it. The mind doesn't want to come down from Brahman. Pour Brahman into Brahman, said Maharaj slowly and like a child. He opened his mouth for the water to be poured into it. Then he turned to Swami Sharadananda and said, brother, Sri Ramakrishna is real. His divine incarnation is real. After this, Maharaj was silent for a while. He was deeply absorbed in meditation, and his face wore an expression of great sweetness. The minds of those who were present were so uplifted that they felt no grief, only joy and silent calm. All sense of the world and of death was lost. Suddenly, out of the silence, the voice of Maharaj was heard. That inexpressible light, Ramakrishna, the Krishna of my Ramakrishna. I am the shepherd boy. Put anklets on my feet. I want to dance with my Krishna. I want to hold his hand, the little boy Krishna. Krishna, my Krishna, you have come. Krishna, Krishna. Can't you see him? Haven't you eyes to see? Oh, how beautiful my Krishna on the lotus, eternal, the sweet one. My play is over now. Look, my child Krishna is caressing me. He's calling me to come away with him. I am coming. The tenderness and heavenly compassion that filled his heart were expressed in every word he uttered. The whole atmosphere of the large hall where he was lying seemed to vibrate with this emotion. No one can describe the extraordinary sense of holiness which was created by his presence. Everyone knew that the fateful hour was approaching and that Maharaj was taking his final leave. During the early hours of the morning, he remained silent for some time and fell into a slumber. At 7 o'clock, he woke and was again possessed by this high spiritual mood. He called a few disciples who had just arrived and who had not been present the previous night. To each he gave his blessing, bestowing comfort and fearlessness. But so great was the power of his mind, so completely was it freed from the meshes of physical matter, that it remained completely unaffected by the condition of his suffering body. He maintained perfect consciousness right up to the last moment of his life. As that last evening faded into night, his chest suddenly heaved. It was as if a great wave of breath passed up the body to the throat. His half-closed eyes opened, and he gazed into the distance, his eyes shining with brilliance and unspeakable beauty. Thus it was that on April 10, 1922, the life left his body. Do not grieve, I shall be with you always. Those were his last words to his disciples after his passing away. We all had the feeling that Maharaj was intensely present with us. He was closer to us than ever before. For as long as Maharaj was in the physical body, there was a barrier which was now no more. More than 40 years have passed since that day, and every disciple can bear witness to the fact that Maharaj still lives, protects, and guides him onward toward the goal. When I was about to leave India and take up my duties in the United States, Swami Shivananda said to me, never forget that you have seen the Son of God. You have seen God. Yes.
A beautiful reading, like Sri Krishna's beauty, the reading, the passage, the mode of reading, everything was so beautiful. So today's the topic now of this session is how saints and seers view Sri Krishna. Among them, first I would like to say about how Sri Ramakrishna, what he said about Sri Krishna. The devotional scriptures and the life of Sri Ramakrishna teach us that with the help of different modes, Shanta, Dasya, Sakhya, Vatsalya, and Madhura, man can ultimately realize non-dual reality. All these different modes of bhakti, but they may lead us to the non-dual reality. There's no difference between non-dual. You read the life of Swami Brahmananda. He saw infinite ocean of Satchidananda, from that the Krishna coming. Like that is the thing. Non-dual and dual all merged together. It is known from the study of the history of religions that with the ultimate development of each of the 5 modes, the aspirant forgets himself and feels happy when his beloved is happy, absorbed in the thought of him during the time of separation from him. He sometimes loses even the consciousness of his own existence. From the study of the devotional books like the Bhagavata, it is seen that not only did the gopis of Braja forget in this way their own existence, but actually felt on occasions identified with their beloved Krishna. Therefore, we find that with further development of each one of the 5 modes, the aspirant becomes absorbed in the thought of his or her object of love and united and identified with him under the strong impulse of love, realizes the non-dual state of consciousness. Sri Ramakrishna's unique life of spiritual striving has thrown wonderful light on this matter. He practiced each of the 5 spiritual loving modes, and in each of them, he became merged in the object of his love, and absolutely forgetting his own existence, realized the non-dual reality. Here is next from Sri Ramakrishna. How can you say that the only truth about God is that he has form? It is undoubtedly true that God comes down to earth in the human form, as in the case of Krishna. And it is true that as well that God reveals himself to his devotees in various forms. But it is also true that God is formless. He is the individual Satchit Ananda, existence, knowledge, bliss, absolute. Mere reading of the scriptures is not enough. A person cannot understand the true significance of the scriptures if he is attached to the word. Though with intense delight, I learned many poems and dramas. I have forgotten them all, entrapped in Krishna's love. Verily, the Lord looks into a man's heart and does not judge him by what he does or where he lives. Krishna accepts a devotee's inner feeling of love. That was what Sri Ramakrishna had to say about Sri Krishna. That Krishna Bhava Grahi Janardana, it says. The Lord knows the inner feeling of the heart. How he does, where he is very secondary to God. Inner feeling that he understands. They say God is very hungry of devotees' true love and feeling for him. And other formalities and rituals he cares not at all. So our heart should feel for God. The love should flow from our heart to God. That's what Sri Ramakrishna said, and also said that even the Pancha Bhava of the devotion, they all can merge in the Nirakara Bhava. Swami Vivekananda, as Buddhadev was saying yesterday, he spent so many pages from his talks are there in more than 100 pages are there about Sri Krishna. He wrote maximum of all the incarnations of God. He wrote on Sri Krishna, Swami Vivekananda. To just say some incident about Swami Vivekananda's life about Sri Krishna. At Jaipur, Swami Vivekananda became very intimate with Sardar Hari Singh, the commander-in-chief of the state of Jaipur. He spent many days in his home discussing many interesting and instructive spiritual and scriptural subjects. One day, the subject was the efficacy of image worship. A strong believer in the doctrines of the Vedanta, Hari Singh did not believe in images, and even after hours of discussion with the Swami, he remained unconvinced. There were the Vedanta students like that. There was so much gap was felt between the Nirakara, Darshana Nirakara, the Lord, and the Sakara form of God. Sri Ramakrishna, so many times he spoke about one who is with form is without form. There is no class, there is no distinguishing thing between the form, God with form and God without form. It is one God. He can present himself with form and he can reveal himself without form. So don't distinguish. And never say that God is only with form. Or don't say God is without form at all. Swami Vivekananda, being the chief disciple of Sri Ramakrishna, he tried to explain to this Sardar Hari Singh, the commander-in-chief, the king of Jaipur, that God dwells in both the forms. It is not that God is only without form as you have studied in Vedanta. So that's what Sri Ramakrishna had said to Swami Vivekananda. Who was Rama, who was Krishna is presently Ramakrishna, but not in your Vedantic sense. Sri Ramakrishna had said at the last moment in Kashipur in 1886, how Swami Vivekananda understood that. Vedanta recognizes everyone is God, everyone is Krishna, like that. But the reality makes the difference. The incarnation of God is totally different from ordinary human beings. That one has to accept. Not that everyone is incarnation of God. But incarnation of God and the human being, if both have the same soul. Soul-wise, they are same. They are infinite Satchidananda. But manifestation of that Satchidananda in the incarnation of God is totally different from his manifestation as the human being. So that is the greater manifestation to guide the human beings that God incarnates or he produces himself as the incarnation of God. The Satchidananda comes to guide the Satchidananda Jiva this Satchidananda Shiva comes. So one has to find the distinguishing between Satchidananda Avatara and Satchidananda Jiva. So that's what Sri Ramakrishna had said, and Swami Vivekananda understood. Now this Sardar Hari Singh won't believe that God can take form. He won't believe in form worship of form like that. So there is an incident. In the evening, they went out for a walk, Sardar Hari Singh and Swami Vivekananda. As they were passing along the footpath, they came upon some devotees carrying the image of Sri Krishna and singing devotional songs as they went. The Swami and the Sardar watched the procession for a while as it passed. Suddenly, the Swami touched Hari Singh and said, "Look there, see the living God." The eyes of the Sardar fell on the image of Lord Krishna, and he stood there transfixed with tears of ecstasy trickling down his cheeks. When he returned to ordinary consciousness, he exclaimed, "Well, Swamiji, that was a revelation to me. What I could not understand after hours of discussion was easily comprehended through your touch. Verily, I saw the Lord in the image of Krishna." This is how great teachers can do. Swami Vivekananda was once explaining Vedanta to the brahmacharis and young monks in Perumal. Swami Kripamayananda was going to worship Sri Ramakrishna in the morning at about 9 o'clock. Suddenly, Swami Vivekananda, in the course of his teaching, he said, "Can't you perceive Brahman? Here is the Brahman. See, here it is the Brahman." And every student felt that there is Brahman's presence everywhere. Swami Brahmananda was just walking. He also just stood still and could not walk with the plate of worship of flowers and all that in his hand. For some time, all that everything was frozen in the moment, as it were. Everything was merged in Brahman. Everyone perceived the reality of Brahman. That is the power of great spiritual person like Swami Vivekananda, Sri Ramakrishna. Swami Vivekananda saw Sri Krishna in the image, touched Sardar Hari Singh with that touch, and that Sardar Hari Singh could perceive the reality of Sri Krishna in that image, and that view that God cannot become form, only God is formless, it all was shattered, and he could find that God can become with form, God can become without form, and he found the truth. What Sri Ramakrishna always preached to Swami Vivekananda. Swami Vivekananda, by a touch and his own experience, he showed that to Sardar Hari Singh about Sri Krishna. For Swami Vivekananda, Sri Krishna was living entity. He said it's the most popular, most charming aspect of God that Sanatana Dharma has produced from his boyhood until his death, from his Vrindavan Leela until to Uddhava Gita. All Sri Krishna is always directing, inspiring, charming personality. Never he lost his charm, whether in the battlefield of Kurukshetra, the groves of Vrindavan, and doing Rasa Leela. Sri Krishna is Sri Krishna all the time. And Swami Vivekananda is great admirer of Sri Krishna. Sister Nivedita would often hear from Swamiji during their time together. How wonderful was the Gita, says Swami Vivekananda. Reading it as a boy, I would be stopped every now and then by some great sentence, which would go throbbing through my brain for days and nights. They who find pleasure and pain the same, heat and cold the same, friend and foe the same, and that description of the battle, a spirited battle too, with the opening words of Krishna, I will do it befit thee, Arjuna, thus to yield to unmanliness. How strong, says Swami Vivekananda, don't yield to unmanliness, O Arjuna. Swami is like that. In his writing on the Gita, he says, those are the most profound message of the Gita. He said that, Klaivyam masma brahma partha naitat vayu papadate shudram hidaya daurvalyam tyaktva tyaktotishta parantapa uttishta parantapa. Oh, valorous being, king, get up, give up your faint-heartedness and be ready to face the challenge of life. He said that for everyone. And he said that is the profoundest message of the Gita. Be manly and take the challenge of life. Don't be weak and cry, but face the challenges of life. Be manly, because we are not simple weaklings. We are the children of God. God is always with us. We are the children of immortality. We are immortal by true nature. So why to be afraid of anything? We are not going to die. We don't die, and nobody whom we see as dead is not dead at all. Sri Krishna showed that to the Arjuna when he was afraid. He said, nobody dies. Everybody that dies will be reborn. Everybody is born will be dead. So it's a cycle going on, and the soul doesn't die. It is Achedyoyam, Adaikoyam, Akledyo, Susevacha, Nitya Sarvagata Sthanu, Achaloyam Sanatana. Don't you believe in the soul, and you see only this body and mind, this matter, and you are thinking that alone is the human being? What a pity to think human being is just the body and mind, just a conglomeration of the material particles. It is not that. Material particles are the sheath of the human being, are the servant of the human being, this body and mind. Real human being is the soul, immortal, ever-present, not dying, eternal, blissful self. Try to perceive your own reality, O man, says the Krishna. Swami Vivekananda like that. There had been one mind in India, and that had foreseen the need of the people, that of Krishna. Krishna recognized at once the need of the people and the desirability of preserving all that had already been gained. Nor are the Gopi story and the Gita the only forms in which he reached the ignorant. For the whole Maharashtra is his. The whole Mahabharata is his, carried out by his worshippers, and it begins with the declaration that it is for the people. In Krishna, we find two ideas stand supreme, says Swami Vivekananda. In this message, the first is the harmony of different ideas, the second is non-attachment. A man can attain to perfection, the highest goal, sitting on a throne, commanding armies, working out big plans for nations. In fact, Krishna's great sermon was preached on the battlefield. This was the great work of Krishna, to clear our eyes and make us look with broader vision upon humanity in its march upward and onward. It was the first heart that was large enough to see the truth in all. He is the first lip that uttered beautiful words for each and all. You must worship the self in Krishna, not Krishna as Krishna, says Swami Vivekananda. He makes it more personal. Krishna as Krishna, we make it more individual. But Krishna as the self, Krishna as God that dwells within us. As Krishna himself said, I am the Atman in every being. That try to find that Krishna, as Swami Brahmananda also said. Here is the Krishna of Ramakrishna that is here. So Ramakrishna is the totality, and Krishna is has come to take him. Not separate from Ramakrishna. Like that, Krishna in our heart, in our Atman, is not separate from Krishna. Don't individualize the Krishna. Don't individualize any deity. That is part of the whole. If you individualize, you limit God. Sri Ramakrishna said, don't say God is this much and not that. God is all. He is total. He is whole. He is infinite. That was Swami Vivekananda says. Worship Krishna as the soul, not as Krishna. Shiva is the sublime aspect of God. Krishna is the beautiful aspect of God. Love crystallizes into blueness. Blue color is the expression of intense love, says Swami Vivekananda. Sri Ramakrishna also said that because of oneness between Radha and Krishna, he said, Krishna wears yellow, Radha's complexion is yellow. Radha wears blue, Krishna's complexion is blue. To say that Krishna and Radha are non-separable. When you say Radha and Krishna, if you separate them and say this was a man and this was a woman, you are not doing justice to the truth. Radha and Krishna, Parvati and Shiva, Brahma and Maya, they're all one existence, one reality appearing as Shakti, Brahman appearing as Shakti. Whole God, the infinite being, the infinite reality appearing in this multiverse, multifarious universe with a variety of things. That's what Swami Vivekananda tried to do. So now Nivedita also said that the two ideas are very important, how the Swami Vivekananda tried to guide Nivedita in the life of Sri Krishna, dedication of yoga. Nivedita fully dedicated her life to love, in the love of India and God. Her life was already, as Sri Krishna taught, her life was filled with the message of Sri Krishna. Sri Chaitanya later on came. How he looked upon Sri Krishna. Sri Krishna was his chosen ideal. And devotees believe Sri Chaitanya was Sri Krishna incarnated himself. When God comes, he comes as a devotee of a God. That's one beauty of God. All gods, from Sri Ramakrishna, at least we know that how Sri Ramakrishna, incarnation of God, he was devoted to Mother Kali. And of course, to say he was devoted to Mother Kali would be making him smaller. He was devoted to God in any form. He has the vision of Rama and Ramlala and Krishna and all the gods and Jesus and all. So like that, Sri Chaitanya was also very devoted to Krishna, though he was himself an incarnation of Sri Krishna. And he wrote a beautiful poem, 8 stanzas on the devotion. It's called Shikshastakam, that we chant in the Hollywood Center every day of morning. In that, one of the verses say, Nayanam garadasrudharaya vadanam gadagadarudhaya gira Kudakai nichitam bahu kada tavanam grahne bhavishyati. What a level the devotion has to go. That intensity of devotion that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has shown in Shikshastakam. He says, when will the day come that my tears will flow always like the rainy season, and my voice will be choked with emotion in uttering thy name, and my hairs in my body will stand on end while repeating your name, O Krishna. When will that day dawn? Actually, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had already experienced that. He is writing that for us. And that should be the depth and intensity of devotion to personal God. That when God, you can't even utter the name of God, your voice is choked with emotion, and your tears are flowing from your eyes, and your hairs are standing on end with love of God. So that's how Shankara, Sri Chaitanya tried to epitomize the level of love of God in describing about Sri Krishna. Shankaracharya, also in his Krishnastakam, though he was a very Advaitist and founder of Acharya of Advaita, but he wrote many poems on Ganga, Yamuna, and Devi, beautiful poems on devotion that Shankaracharya attributed to. One of the poems is it's called Nandanandanastakam or Sri Krishnastakam. That how beautifully it is described, and this poem also is said to be written by Shankara. In that it is said, Lord Sri Krishna has large lotus-like eyes. His head is decked with feathers of a peacock's tail. Sri Krishna enchants the whole world, and millions of devotees are ardently drawn to him. We bow to Lord Krishna, the joyous son of Nanda. Lord Krishna, the tip of whose nose glistens with a beautiful pearl, and whose line of teeth is sparkling white. His cheeks are so very smooth, and he is the true Lord of the universe. We bow down to Lord Krishna, the distinguished son of Nanda. That's like that he writes 8 verses on Sri Krishna, describing the charm of the beauty of the physical form of Krishna, that how the Krishna's attraction even to that Advaita Acharya Shankara was there. He could not even forget that beauty when he meditated on Krishna. That is the charm of Krishna described by everyone. Sri Ramakrishna, Swami Vivekananda, Shankara is not out of that. So like that is the thing. Bhagavata describes Krishna as Bhagavan Swayam. Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. Krishna is God himself. It is not like making, distinguishing between incarnation of God and God. As if in Krishna's time, God himself came as he is in the form of Krishna. That's why in the Shastra it is said it is the 16 parts fully manifested God as Sri Krishna. He is not the Son of God. He is not a portion of God. He is not a part of God, but he is God himself. Actually, every incarnation of God has got the full God. Even Sri Ramakrishna in a vision saw that this time it is the full manifestation of God. He said, he had the vision, and that who came up to God, he said, but this time it is a manifestation of Sattva Guna. All Sattva Guna aspect of God is fully manifested in Sri Ramakrishna incarnation. How this is revealed to them. So Bhagavata says that Krishna is to Bhagavan Swayam. Krishna is God himself. Madhvacharya was a great Vaishnava saint. He's the Acharya who propounded duality, Madhvacharya. Vishishtadvaita was Ramanujacharya, Madhvacharya was dualist. He believed in duality of God. God is one and jivas are separate, eternally separate, and the world is the creation of God. He had a wonderful love. Krishna is the supreme Godhead, he said, the creator and sustainer of this world, who remains personal God, separate from his creation. That is the idea of Madhvacharya. He says, like the sun and its energy, that sun is there, standing somewhere in the heavenly body, and its energy fills the whole creation, whole solar system. But the solar system, the energy doesn't become sun. Sun is there. So like that is God and its creation. Like the tree and the fruit. Tree is standing. There is many fruits. So fruits like the creation, it comes, but tree is there. Like that is God. God is separate eternally from his creation, from the jivas, which are eternally connected to God. They come from God, but God is separate. Like that is Sri Krishna. He is separate from the creation. That was Madhvacharya's view on God. There's another great Vaishnava saint or dualist saint. His name is Vallabhacharya. Krishna is the Lord of sweetness for him. Just sweetness, Krishna. We have heard of Madhurastakam, the 8 stanzas on the sweetness of God. It was the sweetness of Sri Krishna. Adharam madhuram vadanam madhuram nayanam madhuram hasitam madhuram hidayam madhuram gamanam madhuram madhuradipate akhilam madhuram. What to describe of Krishna, he says, everything is sweet. His sweetness of God manifested as Krishna. What is his sweetness? He says, Adharam, his lips are so sweet, and Vadanam, his face is charming and sweet, and his eyes, Nayanam Madhuram, and his smile, beautiful, sweet smile of that baby Krishna, Hridayam Madhuram, his heart is made of diamond, so sweet is his heart. Gamanam Madhuram, his walk is moving, his gait is so sweet. And Madhuradi, because everything about what to describe about the sweetness of Krishna, everything about him is sweetness and charm. That's what Vallabhacharya says. And he says, your words, O Krishna, your words, life, your clothes, your gaits and your movements, your walking are so sweet. Sweet are your flute, and even the dust of your feet is so sweet. Your dreaming is sweet, your lotus feet is sweet, your friendliness is sweet, all are so sweet. Your songs, your drinking, your eating, your sleeping, and your everything, your face, everything charms with sweetness. Your words and your swimming, your stealing, even your stealing is sweet, even your oblation is sweet. He never finishes, ends with the sweetness of Sri Krishna. Everything of Sri Krishna is sweetness to him. If you listen to this song sung by great singers of India, this Madhurastakam, this beautiful song that Vallabhacharya describes Sri Krishna as the Lord of sweetness, which is unforgettably sweetness, an object of meditation. When we hear about these things, about the sweetness, the charm, the attraction of Krishna, and when we sit for meditation and we remember these verses of Vallabha or any verses of Mirabai or anyone, our meditation just catches up the charming, the brilliance, the pride, the sweetness of the baby Krishna that comes in front of us. Our mind is attracted to that. Our meditation is very chance, our meditation becomes deeper on that. Madhusudana Saraswati was a great saint. He was an Advaitic saint. His book on the Bhagavad Gita, Bhasya is there, Madhusudana Saraswati Bhasya. Great Advaitic person. But he was also later on, like that Sardar Hari Singh, by Swamiji's touch, how he believed in the personal God, Sri Krishna. Like that, he also was charmed by the beauty of Krishna somehow. After writing Gita and all that, what happened in this Advaita is he became charmed by the personal God of Sri Krishna. And he wrote beautiful line on Sri Krishna. He said, Vamshi Vibhushita Karan Namani Radha Pitambara Dharuna Bimba Falad Harostar. When I close my eyes, I see Krishna. How do I see Krishna? He's having flute in his hand, and he's of the hue of the new cloud, new rain cloud, and he's wearing yellow robes, and his lips are like the bimba fruit. Bimba fruit is very red in color when you cut. So his lips like bimba fruit. Every part of the body is being described, and his face is exceedingly beautiful, like the full moon. Purnendu Sundara Mukhat Aravinda Netrat. And eyes represent the lotus flower. Lotus flower before it blooms, just like that, and put in the eyes. That are beauty of the lotus flower is his eyes. After having seen and visualized such beauty of God, can there be any other tattva, any other thing? I've seen such Krishna param kimapi tattva maham na jane. Now I don't care for any other theory or philosophy of God or reality. Krishna is the reality, the very Lord of my heart, his personal God, and his beauty has all attraction and charm for me. That's how great Advaitist Madhusudana Saraswati writes. Mirabai was a great saint and lover of Krishna. How did she felt Krishna? From a very childhood she was attracted to Krishna. She could not even become, though she was a queen, but she couldn't, that palace and the rules and all the gorgeousness and the paraphernalia of palace could not hold her. Devotion was so great for her. And she became devoted to Krishna. And she used to sing many beautiful songs by Mirabai, the songs of devotees' love for God are so beautifully expressed in Mirabai's song. And the refrain is, Mere to Giridhara Gopala Dusaro no koi. I don't have any other object of adoration and love. I have only Giridhara Gopala, the Gopala who held Giri on his little finger. That's Krishna alone is my everything. Nothing else is there that even attracts me. No other, not other anyone else, not even the palace or the relations or the human beings or the friends, all are secondary, and my priority is Sri Krishna. Mere to Giridhara Gopala Dusaro na koi. When one has this type of devotion, Sri Krishna says it is Ananya Bhakti. Bhaktya mam abhijanati yavan yas chasmi taktvata. Tato mang tattato gyatva vishate tadanantaram. You can merge in Brahman, you can merge in reality just by taking the path of bhakti. But that bhakti should be Ananya Bhakti, totally devoted to me, not to anything else. When you have such type of bhakti, you will know me, who and what I am. You will know the reality, and then you will enter the reality to become one with the reality. Jnana can happen through bhakti, as it was told in the reading that by all the 5 modes of bhakti you can reach God. Similar thing can happen. And Mirabai was not very dogmatic only Krishna. She writes a beautiful song. Payo ji maine Rama Ratana Dhan payo. Vastu amolika di mere Satguru kripa kari apnayo. Then what did he get? Rama Ratan, Ramanam. Ram and Krishna are indifferent. Krishna and Shiva are indifferent. When those he said, Mere to Giridhara Gopala Dusaro na koi, he means that Krishna is God, reality, soul. That is the thing that I am devoted. Nothing else can take my mind away. Such type of devotion that Mirabai describes. In our old times, there is the story of Gopal's mother. Gopal's mother's story, the devotees of Sri Ramakrishna, all they know. How Gopal's mother was a widow in her childhood, and she was devoted to Krishna and used to live alone and do lot of japam. Since morning, after ablution, sat for japam, then after a little breakfast, japam, after lunch, japam, whole day she will do japam only, and the japam in the name of Gopala. Gopala was her child, like that. The God was her child. She was worshipping God as child, Vatsalya Bhava. Now, after doing a lot of this Gopal sadhana by through japam, one day suddenly he has closed eyes and was doing japam. Then he finds someone is pulling her rosary. He opens eyes, who is pulling my rosary? Nobody comes here. This small baby boy is there. She's pulling her rosary away. She instantly recognizes Krishna is here, living, pulling my rosary, manifest in front of me. What a blessed day! As Sardar Hari Singh of Jaipur saw this, in the image Sri Krishna, here Sri Krishna living came to Gopal's mother. She was bewildered, overwhelmed, put her on her lap and ran to Sri Ramakrishna, whom she knew. Sri Ramakrishna had visited her once. She was such a devotee. And while going, she felt the Gopal's feet are touching, dangling on her chest and touching her chest and crying and shedding tears of joy. She went to Sri Ramakrishna. After that, Gopal was always there, and Gopal merged in Sri Ramakrishna, and he said, "You are the one, my Gopala. You came to me and revealed yourself as that baby Krishna. You are the one I recognize." And he used to call Sri Ramakrishna as Gopala. So how is Gopala? What he wants to do? And Sri Ramakrishna used to ask her, "Mother, make me this food, make me that food. What type of sadhu is this? Who wants just food, wants to request for preparing, cooking this? What type of sadhu I am in trouble with?" As he used to say. But so much of love was there for Gopal's mother for Sri Ramakrishna, because in her she saw her own, in him she saw her own Ishta, her own Gopala. And after Sri Ramakrishna passed away, she lived on, and she was taken care of. She was taken care of by Nivedita, surprisingly. And Nivedita, when she was sick and old age, she came and lived with Nivedita and Nivedita nursed her until last. That by inspired by Swami Vivekananda, the great spirituality of India lives in these great personalities. Otherwise, this Gopal's mother, when she saw Sri Krishna living, and Narendranath had come that day, and she described to Narendranath, young man, educated, very confident, and she said, "Naren, I saw Gopala with this mistake or this vision, wrong idea that I have." Narendranath was not accepted Mother Kali, who used to believe in informal, formless aspect of God according to being member of Brahmo Samaj. He says, "No, mother, what you have seen is right. It is true." He was so large-hearted, though he may not say that God can be with form. But Swami Vivekananda, the chief disciple of Sri Ramakrishna Narendranath, and all that believe God can be in many forms, and he can be in form. But he could not go to Kali temple because he had the signature that we will not worship God with form, being member of Brahmo Samaj. Some of that binding. But when at the end, how he goes to Mother Kali and accepts Mother Kali and sees Mother Divine there in the image of Mother Kali, as Swami Sri Ramakrishna had seen, the scene was enacted again. Swami Vivekananda goes and he says, Divine Mother there. What he saw, he didn't say, but he saw it was the secret will die with me. But he couldn't ask anything worldly to the Divine. It was manifested. He forgot the world because he saw God. When one sees God, we forget the world, or that forgetting the world is he forgets the world as world and sees the world as divine. That is the transformation of God vision. So that is the beautiful story of Gopal's mother. Now, how does Gita sees Sri Krishna? Seers and saints and seers are there. Gita says that Sri Krishna is the one by which all the obstacles of Pandavas were removed. Without, we were talking yesterday, without Krishna, there was no Mahabharata battle or no victory for the Dharma or for the Arjuna side. So Gita beautifully describes about the problem of the Mahabharata war. He says how difficult was the thing for the side of Pandava. Bhishma Drona Tata Jayadrata Jala Gandhara Nidopala. Imagine a river where the banks are Bhishma and Drona. This is the river of enemy for Pandavas. Banks are Bhishma and Drona, very powerful. Both are very powerful. They will not let you go on the banks. And the water is Jayadratha, another great warrior, Jayadratha Jala. Gandhara Nilopala. Gandhara, the Shakuni is the blue lotus who entangles in the river. Nilopala, the blue aquatic lotus. Shalya Grahavati Kripena Vahani. Shalya is the shark. In the water is infested with shark. And Kripena Vahani, the flow in the water, the rapids of the water is Kripacharya. And Karnena Vela Pula. And Karna is also there as the quicksand. You go and touch and you drown there. So difficult to cross. Now they have to cross this river. Pandavas have to cross this short river. Ashwathama Vikarna Gora Makara. This Ashwathama and Vikarna are terrible, terrible crocodiles and alligators. Gora Makara. Duryodhana Vartini. And what is Duryodhana? Whirlpool. Ready to drown anyone that comes, to capsize or to capsize boat. How will Pandavas cross this and go to the back? There also they will die. Duryodhana Vartini. So Tirna Khalu Pandavai. And yet Pandavas could cross this river. How did they cross? Swatirna Khalu Pandavai Ranamadi. This battle of this river of battle it crossed because the only reason Kaivartaka Kesava. Because their boatman was Sri Krishna. Sri Krishna was the one who took them across this terrible river. So Sri Krishna can take us across any difficulties, any challenges in life, in our spiritual practice. That is the power of God that the Gita says. It's not only to Pandava, he did to Pandava, and he is ready to do to anyone who takes his support. What Arjuna said, I want you alone, nothing else do I need. Like that, we have to say, we need God alone. He is ready and powerful to protect us and to make us cross this samsara. Take away all our ignorance and all our attachment to this world, born out of ignorance of our true self. God can do that. God is that powerful. As he made Arjuna's cross the river of battle with all these difficulties, he can do that. So that is the faith that Gita gives us. And in the Gita also, there's one beautiful verse. It says, what is the Bhagavad Gita that you all have known? Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayana Swayam. So this Bhagavad Gita is the Narayana had spoken himself to Partha, to awaken the Partha, Pratibodhitam, to make Partha awaken to this spiritual awareness. And God himself came and told this. This is the divine words of God in the Bhagavad Gita. Vyasena Grathita Purana Munina Madhya Mahabharatam. What is the role of Vyasa Guru in Mahabharata? He just compiled it and put in Mahabharata. Vyasa did that. But the words are the words of God himself. Advaita Mitavarchinim Bhagavatim Astad Dasabhyayinim. It is goddess of 18 chapters and it rains the nectar of Advaita, non-duality. That is the Bhagavad Gita's message. And Ambatva Manusandadami Bhagavad Gite Bhavadveshinim. O Mother, I take refuge in thee. By studying thee, you will take me across the river of Dvesha, of duality. I know that you can do that. You are so powerful because you are the words of Lord Sri Krishna. This is how the Gita is eulogized. Sri Krishna is said in the Bhagavad Gita. So Sri Krishna has been worshipped by devotees, innumerable devotees throughout the history, by great seers and sages, by normal, ordinary devotees, by like people like Gopal and Ma. Anyone who has devoted himself to the worship of Krishna, to love of Krishna, has attained to the high region. Some have become like Mirabai, who could express that. Many are there who didn't write anything, could express. Mirabai, Suradas, there were some Rahim, Rasa Khan. There have been so many Muslim poets who are there who wrote so much beautiful poems on Sri Krishna. Even our Nazrul Islam in Bengal has wrote it on Krishna. Sri Krishna charm in India is immortal, and his influence on the people and the person's faith and trust that Sri Krishna is there to make me awaken to my own true nature. That faith rests in all of us. May Sri Krishna guide us in our journey from darkness to light and from death to immortality. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Shri Krishna Arpanamastu.